Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to do some router work on this image here that a little lady has drawn for her nana, grandmother, as you can see there. Now this is a little gift that I'm going to be posting on to them. They have no idea I'm doing this, so it's something I sneaked off Facebook on her profile picture, and I'm going to actually route it out onto 12mm plywood. Now I would have preferred pine, but unfortunately I've had a look through my stock and there's nothing to use at the moment in time, and I've got to get this done and sent and posted off before a certain date. So the idea is I've printed the image of, obviously drawn out there. I've laid it onto my 12mm plywood and placed carbon paper underneath. Now this is the way I do things, simple carbon and trace. It's the way I've done it from day one, and I've certainly got no issues. Once it's all stuck in place with a bit of tape, I prefer to use a biro or a pen. Pencil will be fine, and you just draw around it. It takes 5 minutes, if that, to go around everything. Then once you pull off your template, there's our lovely image ready to be routed out. Now the idea on this one is to simply route out all these coloured sections, as you can see there, and I'm just going to inlay them with coloured resin. Now I was going to use paint at one time, but this is on plywood, and there's a lot of paint on here, and once you do a lot of sanding with your plywood, you do tend to take the top veneer section off, the top layer. Remember, plywood's made of different layers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 layers here, and as you start routing out or sanding down, you can disturb the layers. So for me personally, we'll get it somewhere all routed out nicely, bit of stain on, maybe a bit of varnish or something, and then we're just literally going to fill them in with resin, and that will be it done as regards to the project. The only downside is we have this section around the face, so we will route out these areas. Take time to it's a bit more complicated around this here. I won't say complicated, but just shading what we want to remove. So we're going to remove the eyes, the nose and the mouth, and we'll actually leave the face, and then we'll route out all the surrounding area. So the only piece that will be painted will be the actual face. Had this been on pine, I would have done it on 1, 2, 3, 4 different levels. The eyes being the highest, then I would routed out the face, then routed out the hand itself, and then routed out the background. But that means a lot of sanding, and we just can't do it with the plywood. So one level, and then we'll literally just leave the faced area. Right, so there's all our image nicely ready to go. It measures in at 8.5 inches by 12 inches there, and like I say, it's on 12mm plywood. For routing out, as always for me, these little CNC bits, they come with different degrees, 15, 10s, 20s or 30s, and that is simply the angle of the cut. This looks like a 15, this one, and that's fine as we are putting resin in, and you can just see from there, that's the angle of the cut there, so that'll be a 15. We'll use this to do all our lines. With all your routing, you want to be inside the line, never route out on the line, because if we went around there on the line, that middle section will be gone. So you want to be inside there. Same with these, inside that line, inside line, and so on. Does it really matter? Not on projects like this, but you might have some detailed work where you'll have to be a bit careful with your lines. And the same on these. We're route inside that line there, and inside that line up to there. So we do all our lines with the CNC bit. They do come with a small shaft on them, a 3.175mm. Now they will fit a Dremel no problem if you have the Dremel router attachment. But for a 1/4 inch router, you're going to need what they call a reducer adapter collet, and it's basically just a little tube like that with some slits in, 6.35mm, and your 3.175mm CNC bit will fit in like so. Now that will fit your 1/4 inch router, no problem. Obviously if your router takes 1/2 inch shafts, you're going to need a bigger adapter collet. So we'll pop that in the router first. I work on 3mm, which is that one there, number 2. You can buy proper depth gauges. I know that's 3mm because it's literally the same height as the CNC bit roughly, so that's near enough for us. So that will be the depth. So we'll remove all these sections here, ones going around the lines. Some of these are so small they will just come out with the CNC bit, but once we've done all the lines, we will simply pop on an end milling bit. These are fantastic. They route out the side area as well as giving you a decent enough smooth finish on the bottom. And we'll find one that simply fits in. They fit the same adapter, so we'll just remove our CNC bit, pop that in there, set it to the same depth, 3mm. I tend to remove one or two, and then we can just put the router on and set it to the depth, and then we will use this to remove all the rest of the piece. A little tidy up, and then we'll go and find some resin. Before that, we will put some varnish on here, or some stain maybe, and then we'll colour it with acrylic paints, basically just to fill it all in, and this little project will be finished. But for now, we'll pop in the CNC bit into our router, set it to about 3mm, and start routing out the lines on this one. Right, so we've gone all the way round with the CNC bit there, as you can see. We've done all our lines. Now all these smaller sections I literally just removed with the CNC bit, because it is plywood. Once you've gone round your lines and you start doing the middle section, it just pops out, no problem whatsoever. So the next stage, I just find my little pencil there again. Now I've got to remove these bigger sections here, which we've penciled out, and all the way around the face, remember, and inside the eyes and the nose. So it will be a simple case of removing the CNC bit. You will get a lot more projects out of that, that's for sure. And I'm going to pop in one of these end milling bits. These are all Amazon or eBay for me. I will leave a couple of links in the description. So we'll simply just pop that into the same adapter collet, remember. Pop it in the router, and we can just set it to one of these depths here. I always like to remove a couple of pieces. They make nice little depth gauges, or if not, like I say, you can go back to your piece of wood that we started with. So we'll set it to one of these and literally just remove the remaining sections. This is just a nice size to let us get inside these bits here, should we need be. We will go around with sandpaper and give it a general tidy up anyway, but for now let's just remove the remaining pieces. Okay, so we've cleared all that out with those end milling bits. They work fine, no problem. If anything, I've probably gone a little bit deeper than I would have liked to have done. I still say that's just maybe just slightly over 3mm. No problem with that. The only downside is it's going to take a little bit more resin to fill it in, but that's no problem whatsoever. So we're not far off with that. I'm just going to give it a little sanding over just to remove these pencil lines, and also just get a little bit of a clear out. Just little bits in here, little bits of fluff and stuff we want to tidy up. Remember, we don't have to focus too much on the background. That's all going to be totally covered. And for cleaning out purposes, I'll just use these cheap Dremel engraving bits off of eBay. They work fine, and I have them on the end of a flexi cable like so. This just simply attaches to my Dremel, and I will use this nice flat bottom one, and that will just allow me to go in there. Just take extra 5 minutes, give it a tidy up, and then a good bit of sandpaper. Sand it up and just take those little edges off it. It won't need a lot. Remember, most is going to be filled in, and all we will see is that top section. So a quick tidy up first, and then when we come back, we'll look into what we're going to do with the staining side or oiling before the actual resin starts going in. Let's give it a little tidy up first. Right, we've done all our tidying up. When I rechecked the template, I'd actually missed this piece off, so I had to redraw it on and route it out as a separate thing. So there's our two pieces now. So we've done all the routing side of things. We've got all our little sections there, hopefully. Now all we need to do is fill these gaps in with the appropriate coloured resin. Now you could try painting there if you want to, but if you remember, I mentioned earlier, once you start sanding down, you might just see that yellow there, round there, these little dots. That's with that minute or two of sanding with the mouse sander. So it soon takes that top layer off, so be aware of that if you are going to use plywood for your little projects and you want to do a lot of sanding on top afterwards. You will get this yellow tinge, which still makes a nice effect, I suppose, once you get your varnish and oils or whatever you want to put on top. So there's our two little bits done. Remember, well, this one done. Ideally, you want to end up something like that. Now the only painting bit will be the face bit, as I said before. So I found something that's going to be near enough. Just a little acrylic paint. So I'm going to paint the face first. Then that's it. The rest will just be resin and multicoloured acrylic paint. Now normally on my projects, I would put on a little stain now or linseed oil. On this one, because I want to be near to paper looking as we can, I'm just going to put the varnish straight on and nothing else. Now I've done a little sample on this piece here, and it does darken it down a little bit. You can just see from that, from there to there, and it just gives it enough shine to say we've got it to go. And the good thing about putting the varnish on, hopefully it will seal this better. Once the resin goes in, it won't be as drastic. So basically I'll go off camera now and paint the face with that, nothing fantastic. Then when we come back, we'll spray the full piece with 2 or 3 coats of the nice varnish. Then that will be it for the wood side of things, apart from basically filling it in with resin. I'll go and do those 2 little jobs first. Right, so we sprayed a bit of varnish on there, and it's just enough. Give it a bit of a shine there, look, and hopefully it just sealed this plywood a little bit. It does it need it or not? We don't know, but for me personally, I just like to finish my projects with that bit of shine. And I've actually painted that middle section there. Not quite got the colour perfect, but it's going to be near enough. Remember, we are resin this, so you're never going to get your exact colours to what the original one of the picture was. I just find on one side here. Remember, we're going to copy that onto there, so we're never going to get it exactly the same. Right, so there's our template all ready to fill in. Resin today. Vista one, 2-part With your resin, you get A, your resin, B, your hardener, and this is what they call a 1-to-1 mix. So whatever amount of A, your resin, you want exactly the same amount of B, your hardener. Now some resins you mix by volume, this is by volume. Some you mix by weights, some resins are 2-to-1, 3-to-1, some resins are deep pour, some are for crafting and stuff. What I like to use are these plastic containers. You get plenty of those, really cheap, and they have little grooves up the side. I'll just count up 3 grooves. The point is mixing a big pot full like that, because by the time you've messed about and done your different colours, it's going to start going off on you. So I'll go with 3 with A, and obviously 3 with B, and literally I'll just pour B into A, because B flows a bit quicker. They do say transfer both into a third container. It's not something I've ever done, and I've never had any issues with the resin not going off. And once we've mixed a little bit of resin, we'll transfer one into an extra container, cup, got plenty there to play with, and then we'll mix the separate colours and start filling these in as we go along. For mixing purposes, I'm not very organised today. I use these plastic knife and forks, spoons. They're ideal because you can mix, and they have a nice little scoop there, and that's just enough to fill in those little small sections. And that will be the way I will do it. There is other methods. I've seen people using syringes before, but remember, with such a small amount of colours, I don't know how you go about cleaning that out. So I've tried it, didn't work for me. And also these little pipette things, it is possible to use these. You can suck your resin up and if you just squirt it in. Same again, I've tried those, they didn't work for me. I find with my smaller amounts of resin, you can actually put your little cocktail stick in there, get a little dab on the end, and eventually that will fall into your hole if you've got a nice steady hand. So I'll mix these 2 A and B resins together, and for colour, just acrylic paints. There's powders out there, inks, dyes. I've tried them all, but I just prefer acrylic paints, and they're cheap enough, and we just dab a bit in there, mix it up, and basically start filling these in. On this one, I'm going to try and fill it as much as I can. When your resin cures, it will go concave, so you will have a little dip in the middle. So we're going to try and go to the top if we can, allowing for that little bit of dip once it cures. Right, we'll start filling this one in. I'll mix a bit of resin off camera, and then when we come back, I think we're going to go for the yellow first, since it's the biggest one, and basically start filling this one in. Okay, there's our first little batch of resin, nicely mixed up. Follow your instructions, give it a nice mixing round. Now, there's not enough in there to do all the yellow bits, so I'm going to go to a different colour, and we're just going to use a bit of red, start doing all the red sections. So we also don't need all that, so we will transfer some into another container, like so. And then we can get another, maybe 2 or 3 colours out of that little bit left there. There's our resin. Like I say, we're going to do red first if I can find it. Now 10% of your colour per the amount of resin you mix has been quoted. Personally myself, I just put it into it, looks right. So we can just squirt a bit in there. You're just about to see it. That's plenty there. Look. It's nice to dollop. Mix that in. And that should be good to go. For these resin projects, especially on larger areas, you can put a bit in. And if it doesn't look dark enough, I will just simply add a bit more. Once we start filling this in, we will literally just speed things up. And like I say, with these smaller areas, I will just use my cocktail stick. We can get a little dab like that, and if you just let it drop in gently, like so, then it will eventually fill it in. And we also use your cocktail stick to help it around. Once we've done each section, we'll skim over with a lighter, and that just helps any bubbles pop up. Right, let's pop a bit in here, pop a bit in here, should I say, and see what it looks like. That's going to do for me, so we'll let that find its own way. Eventually though, it will need a little help like so, just to feed it on its way. So I look across at the picture there, we obviously want a nice red section in here, like so. Let that find its own way while we're messing about. And there's also different red sections here, so looking across, little red one there, so it will be a simple case of going over. Let me just look again. Yep. I'll just let that dab in there like so. Which one is it? That one there. Just gently, it'll take its time. If you do find you've got any excess left over on the wood, it will wipe off if you quickly. Baby wipes, alcohol wipes will clear that off, no problem. Right, so that's that one gone in. And then we look for the next one, and so on, and so on, and so on. It's very nice steady, slow paces this one here. I'm just trying to look for the next one that's over there. Get that, remove that dollop falling off. And another red one just there. So it's going to be nice and steady, but we'll get the general idea from that. So that bit of red one there like so. And it's possible, if you prefer to do the syringes or the pipettes, certainly go that way. Right, we'll speed things up and basically fill this one up. Right, there's our last colour gone in, and after we've done each colour, we skimp across with our lighter, and that just helps. And those little bubbles just disappear. Right, so that's all we can do for now. We'll put a cover over it, stop any flies or any dust. We'll come back in 24 hours, and we'll see what this one looks like. Okay, that's it. This little project is finished. Now it's been just over 24 hours later. Personally, I would leave this for a couple of more days. The smaller your piece, the longer it takes to cure, funny enough. But I'm quite happy with that. Everything's nice and solid. We've had no issues with that one at all. If anything, I've gone a little bit tight again on the resin here. Like I said before, you get a concave effect. I should have probably filled them a little bit more. But I'm sure Nana's not going to complain about this nice little project. So it's routed out on 12mm plywood for hanging purpose. Just a simple hook on the back there, look, works fine. And for routing out, as always for me, we used our little end milling bits, CNC bits. We do all the lines with those. There is other bits out there, remember, profile bits, liner bits, and they all come with a bigger price. So if you're just starting out, you won't go wrong with CNC bits for your lines. And for me personally, little end milling bits, they work fantastic. I think I'm on my fourth pack of those, and they're ideal for routing out all the inners of your project. Once we did all that, we didn't put any oil on today or any stain of any description. If anything, I did try a bit of acrylic paint on there and rubbed it in, let it dry. It's a slight difference in colour, just subtle. Remember, we're not going to get exactly the same. This is nice shiny gloss. The original one, which I just have here, remember, is some kind of paint, obviously. So we've gone from that to that. So I'm sure Nana's going to be more than happy with this one. I did notice towards the end, if you remember, I said I missed this one off, so I had to route it out separately. And looking at the image, I've missed a line down here as well, just down there. But I'm sure Nana's not going to complain about that. So that one's finished with. Like I say, it's all routed out on 12mm plywood with the CNC end milling bits, and then we'll just sprayed it with a bit of varnish, anything that comes to hand, nothing special, and then we inlaid it all with Vista resin, One of my favourites at the moment. And for coloration, remember there's powders, inks, dyes. I just use Crawford and Black acrylic paints. These are all available on eBay, Amazon and so on. And that's it, we're done. And the full project itself, that measures in at 8 inches across by 12 inches high, 1 foot, 12 by 8 for the actual measurements. And that's it, this little project is finished. Thank you very much.